Packers Talk Network.
Packers Talk.
You're listening to No Huddle Radio on the Packers Talk Radio Network, your home for in-depth and thoughtful Packers analysis. I'm your host, Gil Martin. My co-host is my good friend, Sean Tehan. In addition to this show, I write for the Packers Post and Cheesehead TV. And Sean was a TV sportscaster in Minnesota. We're here to talk Packers because you're all here for one thing, and that's a love for Green Bay football. Sean, another big win last week. Packers now 2-1, but the stakes get higher. But before we get to all that, how about a word from our sponsor?
Yeah, the Packers returned home after a big week. And hey, if you're looking for tickets, a few words about our sponsor, Wisconsin's own Ticket King. For over 30 years, Ticket King has been providing Packers tickets to Packer fans. You can find them on the web at theticketking.com or visit their locations in Green Bay and Milwaukee. For direct links to specific Packers game tickets, go to packerstalk.com/tickets or browse their website at theticketking.com. If you're following along with us on YouTube or Facebook, thank you so much. You can see it right there on your screen, packerstalk.com/tickets or theticketking.com. And again, we're on YouTube. We're on Facebook. We're on Spotify, obviously. But go to YouTube, subscribe to us for not just our program, for other great Packers Talk Network programming. And hey, what a great way to start off another week, Gil, by talking about another Packer win. And, man, that was fun on Sunday, wasn't it, against Tennessee?
It really was. And, can't say enough about Malik Willis and what he was able to accomplish. Got to give some platitudes to the defensive line. 8 sacks in that game. Jaire Alexander with the big pick 6. But overall, how about Matt LaFleur? The way he's been able to coach up this team and call the game plans that he put in place, and then Malik Willis just executing that game plan that played to his strengths.
And Matt LaFleur let Malik Willis sling it a little bit. There were some long connections that he had. He had that it was that 3rd and 6 or 7 early on the first drive of the game, and he hits Christian Watson one-on-one down the sideline. Beautiful throw. Christian Watson high points it perfectly along the sideline, sets him up for the first score of the game, and then helping convert on a couple 3rd down and longs, 3rd down and 14, 3rd down and 18, and Matt LaFleur just he was letting Malik Willis sling him a little more, and that was awesome to see. And Tennessee, we talked about where, hey, that's a good rushing defense. That's a good run defense. The Packers carved up 188 rushing yards on the ground against that defense, and with a quarterback not at Jordan Love's level when it comes to throwing the football. A guy like Malik Willis, who struggled a lot of times in that stadium, at Nissan Stadium with the Tennessee Titans. And, man, he outplayed the guy who beat him out for the job in Nashville, and Will Levis. And I want to say, obviously, you mentioned the defense, too, with the 8 sacks. I love so much that Jeff Hafley is the defensive coordinator of this team, because if the Packers were in this situation last year, going into the fourth quarter up 2 scores, Joe Barry would have played prevent defense, let Will Levis dink and dunk all the way down the field, and it probably would have been a much closer game than it should have been. But guess what? Jeff Hafley said, screw it. Your offensive line sucks. Your quarterback sucks at making decisions. I'm attacking you. And he's just like, I'm going to step on your throat, and I'm going to make life hell. And that's what he did. It was essentially like that popular Star Wars meme with Kylo Ren just saying more, and that's exactly what Hafley did. That's what Packer fans wanted to see for so long. We got the guys to do it, and we showed glimpses of what we can be on the defensive side of the football.
It's an attitude, and I love it. The attitude is, I don't think you can beat me. Give it a shot, but we're coming after you, and I don't think you can beat us. Whereas last year it was like, we're going to hope the clock runs out first before you score enough points to get back in this game. It's a whole different mindset, and defensive players love that more aggressive approach to the game.
Yeah, it's just so fun. It's just so fun to watch, and it's a defense that's clearly bought in. Devontae Wyatt had another great game. He's a guy who's really just attacking. He's really shining in this new defensive scheme. And we're going to talk about Devontae Wyatt a little bit later in this episode for sure. But just the whole defense, we expected them to eat like crazy on Sunday, and they did. They took advantage of a bad Titans offensive line. I don't know if we would have seen this last year, where the issue last year, it seemed like with Joe Barry, was against the good quarterbacks, the defense played well, and he had a pretty good game plan. Against the bad quarterbacks, though, they had their best games against Green Bay. Bryce Young comes up, first example, where he had his best career game as a pro, the number one pick from a couple of years ago against Green Bay's defense. Well, Bryce Young's been benched, and he's been terrible in every game except that Green Bay game. Joe Barry, yeah, it wasn't really doing it, and Jeff Hafley has really turned around this defense, and I am here for it, Gil. I'm here for it.
Oh, yeah, and look, they made Tommy DeVito look like a Pro Bowler last year also. So, yeah, it is nice to turn the page and see this defense having a different approach. Look, the problem, not the problem, but the downside to having a more aggressive defense is you live by the sword, sometimes you die by the sword.
Yeah.
Or we haven't seen that. But boy, Justin Jefferson is going to do his best this week to try to make that happen. And this is a great – I am looking forward to this game on Sunday.
Yeah, big game between the Packers and Vikings coming up this weekend. And obviously, the big question mark on the Green Bay side is Jordan Love going to play? He's still with that MCL sprain. He's recovering from that MCL sprain suffered in Brazil in that terrible field down there. He's been limited in practice again this week, but it sounds like he's on track to play if there is no setback this week. Obviously, he's becoming Mr. Limited. There's Mr. Unlimited with Russell Wilson. Jordan Love's Mr. Limited because every time Matt LaFleur and any coach gets asked about Jordan Love's status is he's limited. He's limited. He's limited. He's limited. He's limited. But I will say, though, it's a good sign where if you saw some video from pregame before their game against the Titans in Nashville, where Jordan Love was getting a heck of a workout in beforehand, really trying to see how much mobility, how good he was moving around with that knee issue and everything, and didn't really seem like much of an issue at all, Gil. All signs are looking pretty good right now for Jordan Love.
Fingers crossed, but, it's one of those situations where I believe it when I see it. And, this is one of those situations where the defense for Minnesota is complex. They like to try to confuse quarterbacks. And you've got a choice of a guy who started, 5 games in his entire NFL career, and a guy who has played 1 game and 1 series since January, coming off a knee injury. Not the greatest menu of choices, but I'm optimistic that Jordan Love will play on Sunday, barring any setbacks.
And it's funny, James Jones, former Packer great wide receiver, he tweeted after the Packers ruled him out, or maybe it was the day before the game last week, where it said, "Hey, y'all don't know Dr. Pat McKenzie like I do. Like, there's no way he's gonna play in that game in Nashville." Give credit to the Packers medical staff is overly cautious all the time. They are way, way, way too cautious. And in the end, it's going to be up to the medical staff if he plays or not. And if he plays, obviously, there's going to be some risk. There's some risk anytime you line up in an NFL football game. That's just the nature of the beast. Football's a very violent game. But the Packers may look at this as a situation where it's like, hey, it's still September, and we got 13 more of these after this game, where obviously you want to win. It's a division game. It's against a division opponent that's been very good to start the year, to open the season up. There's a lot of bad blood between these two teams as well, and you want your best guys to play. But if he's not ready, he's not ready. And really, I'm okay if the medical staff says he's good or he's not good, because I trust Pat McKenzie and his medical staff. Overall, they do a pretty good job judging whether a guy's ready to come back or not. So I'm putting my faith and all my eggs in that basket this weekend.
Yeah, likewise. And obviously the most important thing is you don't want anything serious and long-term to happen to Jordan Love. And look, that could happen regardless whether he had this injury or not. You go out there on any given Sunday and, you take that risk, as you alluded to. But end of the day, you want him back when he's ready. And the worst thing that could happen is he comes back too soon, aggravates the injury, and then you're talking, 6 to 8 weeks or the rest of the season, and that's a whole different can of worms.
I'm not saying it's Robert Griffin III's injury that he had his rookie year in Washington, but that's a classic example of why you don't bring a guy earlier than that you should. Take your time, especially when it comes to your franchise quarterback. Take your time. Some other injury news and notes for the Packers. Offensive lineman Jordan Morgan, he missed Sunday's game with a shoulder injury that has been hampering him even during Packers training camp. He has not practiced at all this week. A bunch of limited participants on the Packers side. Defensive lineman Kenny Clark dealing with a toe issue. Jaire Alexander and Luke Musgrave dealing with quad issues. Tucker Kraft dealing with a shoulder issue. He dealt with that on Sunday in Nashville, but he was a full participant, fortunately, for the Packers on Thursday. Josh Myers dealing with a shoulder. Jaden Reed dealing with a calf and a quad. Zach Tom also dealing with a quad. And cornerback Carrington Valentine dealing with an ankle. Valentine missed Sunday's game as well due to injury. Devontae Wyatt was also added to the injury report as a limited participant on Thursday with a shoulder issue. A lot of names on there, Gil, but I feel like this is just the Packers' way. The Packers always list so many guys in the injury report, and I feel like this is their way of making sure that they don't get any fines or stupid fines or anything like that from the NFL because they filed an injury report incorrectly or dishonestly.
Yeah, look, when in doubt, put them down. And, it doesn't hurt you in any way because at the end of the day, whether they take the field on Sunday or not is what matters. You just don't want to get into trouble. So, as far as I'm concerned, I'd rather list them unnecessarily, and I'll put that in air quotes for those of you who are listening to the podcast, rather than, just not list them and then get into trouble with the league.
Yeah, and really, pretty much all those names were on the injury report last week. They were all removed on Friday. And really, Carrington Valentine and Jordan Morgan were the only ones who had injury designations going into that game last Sunday. But coming into this, talking about this game this Sunday, back at Lambeau Field, obviously hosting the division-leading Minnesota Vikings. It's also the return of running back Aaron Jones. He's coming back to Lambeau Field, a fan favorite, a big favorite of mine. A guy I admire so much and respect so much, and I just hate that he's in purple and gold. But he's returned to Lambeau for his first time as a visiting player. After playing his first 7 NFL seasons with the Packers, he's the Packers' 3rd all-time leading rusher, 4th in rushing touchdowns. Also averaged 5 yards per rushing attempt in his Packer career. That's first amongst Packer running backs with at least 100 career carries in Green Bay. Green Bay, they released Jones shortly after signing Josh Jacobs in free agency earlier this offseason. Wasn't willing to take another pay cut, which you kind of understand. It's the business of football. But Aaron Jones coming back to Lambeau Field, Gil, and man, I'm going to have some mixed emotions. I already do going into this game, but I'm going to have a lot of mixed emotions seeing him on the field on Sunday in a Vikings uniform.
Yeah, it just doesn't look right seeing him in purple and gold. And the thing I love about Aaron Jones, not just what he does on the field, he's always been a class act off the field, involved in the community, just somebody who really stands up and tries to do the right thing. And, he already sent out an open letter to Packers fans in the Players Tribune earlier this week. He just does things the right way.
He does.
And, I wish him well every week except the 2 games that he's playing the Packers this year. He is a first ballot Packers Hall of Famer as soon as he retires and is eligible. He will get a very warm welcome before the game, but once the first play is snapped and he gets the ball, he'll just be another guy in purple and gold. And for the next 60 minutes of playing time, we got to stop him. And the thing that concerns me maybe more than anything, Aaron Jones grew up in a Cowboys rooting house. His dad was a big Dallas Cowboys fan. Every time the Packers played the Cowboys, he went over 100 yards. Literally every game. And he just saved some of his best performances, had that extra motivation. He's going to have that extra motivation this Sunday. And boy, is it going to be a challenge for Jeff Hafley, for Kenny Clark, for TJ Slayton and Devontae Wyatt and Quay Walker to slow this guy down.
Yeah, Jeff Hafley's got to have a good scheme for sure. But I will say with Aaron Jones, where you just hear so many stories of the things he's done over the years, where a couple years ago, Keyshawn Nixon in his first year with the Packers, and Nixon's mother was battling cancer, and she came in for a winter game against the Vikings, and Aaron Jones gave Keyshawn Nixon's family his suite at Lambeau Field so his mother could attend and not be in the cold. And that's just that's so great. And he's obviously great. He was great in the community. Just a real awesome guy. He also, in that Players Tribune article, that open letter to Packer fans, where he said, "I won't be wearing the G on my helmet on Sunday, but I always carry the G in my heart." It's like, man, come on, like I'm not supposed to be rooting for you, but come on, man.
It's hard to root against him. It really is.
It is. It's one that really, really, truly hurts. But he's a top 10 rusher in the NFL through the first 3 weeks. He's averaging 5.4 yards per carry. He's also been a good receiver on the backfield. He's been a really nice piece for the Minnesota Vikings offense. We'll talk about the Vikings offense a little more, but Aaron Jones, I think he's going to get a nice round of applause, but once the ball is kicked off, it's game time, and I don't want to see him do anything. I don't want to. Nope. I don't. It was always a popular thing, free Aaron Jones, when we were here in the Mike McCarthy era. I really hope Aaron Jones is not freed and doesn't go loose and go crazy.
Not this Sunday.
Not this Sunday.
No.
Go crazy. Go crazy against the Bears. Go crazy against the Lions. Don't go crazy against us. Thank you. Please and thank you, Aaron Jones. But let's talk about the matchups, though, coming into this week. We're going to start with the Green Bay offense against the Minnesota defense. Green Bay's offense, fifth in total offense, despite not having Jordan Love for the last two games. Minnesota's total defense tied for 13th overall. Green Bay's offense is averaging 25 points per game. That's tied for 7th in football. The passing attack is averaging just under 188 yards a game. That's 22nd. 204 rushing yards a game. That's best in the NFL, and that is amazing given the circumstances that there you have a backup quarterback out there who essentially didn't even seem wanted by his old team. Minnesota's defense allowing only 10 points per game. They've been great at holding teams out of the end, keeping teams out of the end zone. That's second in the NFL. They're allowing 239 pass yards a game. Could be a possible weak spot for the Vikings defense. That's 26th in the league, but their rushing defense has been really good. 71.3 rushing yards per game allowed. That's tied for second in the NFL. So this is kind of a battle of strength versus strength right here with the rushing offense of the Packers and the rushing defense of Minnesota. Gil, what's the matchup that we should really be focusing on between the Green Bay offense and the Minnesota defense?
Well, I'm going to start in the middle of the respective lines. I think the Packers have an advantage with Kenny Clark, who has been off to a little bit of a slow start this year, Devontae Wyatt going up against the middle of the Minnesota offensive line. Garrett Bradbury is the center. You have Ed Ingram and Blake Brendel as the guards. And I think that the Packers can control the middle, both rushing the passer and hopefully tying up the running game a little bit. That is an area that I really find, interesting.
Now, I'm with you where that's a matchup I was looking forward to. But, Gil, I'm asking about the Green Bay offense against the Minnesota defense.
Okay.
That's okay. Hey, it's Thursday. It's been a long week.
Yeah, it's been a long week. Okay. The Green Bay offense against the Minnesota defense. First of all, this is vital, more than anything, protecting the quarterback, regardless of who it is. Because, first of all, the Vikings have 15 sacks through 3 games. That's first in the league. Mm-hmm. They're also second in interceptions behind. Who are they behind again?
Green Bay Packers.
Thank you very much. But they make big plays on defense. But
yes, they do.
Protecting the quarterback, because Brian Flores likes to throw so many different, blitz packages and setups. He'll put 8-9 guys at the line of scrimmage and make you guess how many players are coming and which players are coming. And like I said, you got 2 choices at quarterback. You have Malik Willis, who's very inexperienced and has never faced this Brian Flores defense. And then you have Jordan Love, who, if he does play, probably is not going to have his full elusiveness available to him, be a little bit limited at scrambling. And he's only played 1 game since the playoff loss in January. So, those are not ideal matchups. I want to see Matt LaFleur call the right plays and take advantage of this defense. He sort of figured it out last year in the second meeting between these two teams. Mm-hmm. So now Flores is going to make his counter moves, and now LaFleur has to counter the counter. I love the chess match between these two guys. It is, there's a few games within the game that I'm looking forward to, and LaFleur versus Flores is one of them.
Yeah, this is a really good matchup. And it wasn't just Matt LaFleur who seemed to figure out Brian Flores last year, as it showed on New Year's Eve when the Packers thumped the Vikings in Minneapolis and strolled into 2024 on a happy note, obviously, in Green Bay. But it seemed like Jordan Love even figured out the Brian Flores defense, too. And it seems like with Jordan Love, the second time he saw teams like Chicago, Detroit, Minnesota, things were much cleaner. And he just seemed to really have those teams' number. When he got to see a team for a second time, that was dangerous. And I feel like Jordan Love would be really nice to have in this game. But if Malik Willis plays, the weak spot of the Minnesota defense is the passing defense. I know they can get after the quarterback, rushing the quarterback, but if you can get that ball out there, and the Packers got some good talent on the edges, you got to really get out there. The big matchup, though, that I'm looking forward to player-wise is right tackle Zach Tom against Vikings defensive end Jonathan Grenard. Grenard has 4 sacks this year. That's tied for 3rd in the NFL this season. He was acquired in free agency from the Houston Texans previously. Grenard, he's really the best of the bunch. He's surrounded, though, by a lot of talent. Linebacker Pat Jones, the second. He also has 4 sacks this year. Newcomer linebacker Andrew Van Ginkel, a Wisconsin Badger alum. He has 3 sacks. Defensive end Jonathan Bullard has 4 tackles for loss. That's top 10 in the NFL as well. And like you said, Gil, the Vikings lead the NFL in total sacks this season. They can really get after the quarterback. Zach Tom has been probably the best tackle in football, honestly. He's up there. He's top 3. He's been outstanding. He's been so good. The guy's earning himself a bigger contract every snap, every day, every game that he's playing, and just shining. But, yeah, the chess match between Matt LaFleur and Brian Flores is going to be outstanding, and it's just going to be really interesting to see what each of these teams do, how they counter one another. But when it comes to the O-line against the D-line, this is the matchup I'm looking forward to, Zach Tom against Jonathan Grenard.
And the other thing we've got to see this week, and it's time, Rasheed Walker, I don't want to see any yellow laundry on that field.
Yeah.
You can't afford it. Like you said, they got 3 deep off the edge for the Minnesota Vikings. So Rasheed Walker, and he hasn't played badly outside of the flags, especially in pass protection. Run blocking is okay at best, but the pass protection has been good. But, man, those penalties have been ill-timed. Rasheed Walker has to clean things up. 5 penalties in 3 games. Not going to cut it.
And I feel like with Rasheed Walker, too, where he's a guy who he just gets his hands inside and he just moves his feet a little more, and he's going to be fine. Because outside the penalties, he's been pretty darn good. And it's been a lot of penalties, and I think some of the penalties in Tennessee that were called against him kind of ticky-tack at times, but you could tell the NFL, these NFL refs are keeping an eye on him because it's becoming a pattern where he's always getting some extra laundry. There may be coaches saying that he's holding a lot more. It just seems like there's a big emphasis and a big eye that's being kept on Rasheed Walker more than anybody else on this Packers team. So moving on, though, switching it up. Now, the Minnesota offense against the Green Bay defense. We know what Gil's matchup is to watch, but just going to go through some numbers real quick between these 2 units. Minnesota's offense, 12th overall in the NFL. Green Bay's total defense is 20th. Green Bay's total defense is 28th a couple weeks ago, 20th last week as well. They just keep improving. It's so good. Minnesota's offense averaging 28 points per game. That's 3rd in the league. Averaging just under 205 passing yards a game. That's right in the middle. And 125 rushing yards a game. 13th overall in the NFL. Green Bay's defense, they're allowing 19.3 points per game. Progress is being made on that side of the ball as well. They were 29th in scoring defense last week and now have shot up to 12th overall in the rankings this week. Passing yards, allowing just under 223 pass yards a game. That's 22nd. And the rushing defense is pretty darn good against the Titans on Sunday. Now they're allowing 105.7 rush yards per game, 10th in the NFL. Gil, you want to elaborate a little more on this interior offensive line for the Vikings and the Packers D-line of Kenny Clark, TJ Slayton, and Devontae Wyatt?
Yeah, I just think there's an advantage there for the Packers. But, here's the thing. Clark has got to wake up. He has not been playing at his usual level. And it may have something to do with the adjustment to a 4-man front versus a 3-man front. It may have to do with the fact that for the first 2 weeks, the defense was trying to contain the quarterback and keep him in the pocket rather than just get after him. But we haven't seen the Pro Bowl level Kenny Clark yet this year. The Vikings interior offensive line is not the best. And I think that the Packers can take control of the middle of the line. That is one of the 2 matchups that I am really looking forward to. But the second one is even more important than this one, I think.
Kenny Clark has historically played very well against Garrett Bradbury, the center for the Vikings. And this could be a breakout game for Kenny Clark for this season. This could be the game that gets him right. But I will say with Kenny Clark, I think he gets so much attention. He always does. And that's why Devontae Wyatt has thrived opposite of him, because Devontae Wyatt is getting these one-on-one matchups, and he is dominating those one-on-one matchups right now. He's the sacks leader on this Green Bay Packer team for a reason, and I think Kenny Clark is still commanding so much attention right there. But you mentioned Minnesota's interior O-line. Right guard Ed Ingram hasn't really played very well this year. Even the tackles, Christian Darrisaw and Brian O'Neill, have had some issues here and there. They're not as strong of a unit as usual. But the matchup, though, that I'm looking forward to specifically, it's Justin Jefferson against Jaire Alexander. I mean, this is the matchup where this is the matchup where Kevin O'Connell's first game ever as Vikings head coach, Justin Jefferson, went off in 2022 in that season opener against the Packers at US Bank, where he had 9 catches for 184 yards. But anyone watching that game could see Eric Stokes was the primary corner covering Justin Jefferson. Just another issue with Joe Barry, where it's like, why don't you put your best player on your best player? Even Jeff Hafley commented today about how likely Jaire is going to be lined up on Justin Jefferson quite a bit because he wants his best players on his best players. And he doesn't think the scheme is better than any single individual player. And then in that second game, though, in 2022, when these two guys met, Jefferson was held to 1 catch for 15 yards, and Jaire had a really, really good game. But then last year was kind of awkward. 2023, the game at Lambeau, the Vikings won that game 24-10. Jefferson was on IR with a hamstring injury. Jaire was coming back from a back injury and didn't play that well, primarily covering Jordan Addison. And then that second game at US Bank Stadium, Jefferson dealing with Jaron Hall and Nick Mullins at quarterback, 5 catches for 59 yards, but Jaire didn't play that game because he was suspended for conduct detrimental the game after his antics in Carolina. So, but now these guys are healthy. These guys are both playing really good football this year. Jefferson, you know what to expect. Jaire, as a Pack fan, when he's locked in, you know what to expect. This is the matchup that everyone's going to be feasting their eyes on.
Crazy statistic. When Justin Jefferson gains 100 yards or more against the Packers, Minnesota is 2-0. When the Packers hold them to less than 100 yards, Green Bay is 4-1.
Yeah.
I mean, it is just out there. And I'll say this, 2 things. Number one, I would love to be a fly on the wall listening to the trash talk going back and forth between Jaire Alexander and Justin Jefferson. But number 2, no way can the networks actually broadcast any of it because it probably would get them fined with the FCC.
Oh, 100%. But it would be excellent entertainment. Hey, put it on a streaming service, man. It's like
bleep it out.
Whatever. Have a delay, all that stuff. But this is the matchup that everyone's looking forward to. And Sam Darnold, he's been a journeyman quarterback at this point in his career. He's after being drafted 3rd overall by the Jets, spending some time in Carolina, going to San Francisco, now with Minnesota, probably for just this year. Sam Darnold's been playing great football. 8 touchdown passes this season. He's completed 67.9% of his passes, 117.3 passer rating. That's 3rd in the NFL. Sam Darnold is playing really well. And Justin Jefferson, his numbers aren't quite the Justin Jefferson numbers we're used to, but you still can't count that guy out at any point.
No, you always have to be wary of Justin Jefferson. And they may actually get Addison back as well for this game. So, not easy to slow them down. But I do also think that Sam Darnold has been playing a little bit over his head over the first 3 games, and it's up to the Packers, Jeff Hafley, and that Packers defense to take him down a peg back to, water finding its level. I think it's time for Sam Darnold to find his level.
Yeah, and I feel like that's where this seems like a game where Sam Darnold could regress to the mean, especially the hot streak that the Packers defense is kind of on right now. And it just seems like that he's prone to throwing interceptions. He has been in his career, and this could be one of those games. And, he's got to be eyeing up Xavier McKinney every play because Xavier McKinney's leading the NFL with 3 interceptions. I can't believe the New York Giants still let that guy go. But if we're on a Giants podcast, we could talk all about that, but we're not. We just love that he's in Green Bay. Just want to go through some numbers real quick before we move on, Gil. Turnover ratio so far this year, the Packers +7 in turnover ratio. That's 1st in the NFL. They also have 7 team interceptions this year, already matching the 2023 season total. Jeff Hafley's defense already working wonders, and we're not even a quarter of the way through the season. Vikings +2 in turnover differential. That's 6th in the NFL. And the penalties, Green Bay's offense, 26 penalties this year. That's 5th most in the league. The defense, 12 penalties, tied for the fewest. They've been pretty darn good. After week 1, they had 10 penalties against Philadelphia Eagles, only 2 penalties in 2 games since. Minnesota's offense, 19 penalties this year, tied for 17th most in the league. Minnesota's defense, 24 penalties. That's tied for the 6th most. Kind of an aggressive defense. They a lot of penalties that happen with the Minnesota Vikings on the defensive side of the ball. And then third down conversions, the money down, the important down it determines the wins and losses. It seems like every single week in the NFL. Green Bay's offense, 42.9% converting third downs, 8th in the NFL. On defense, 28.1%, 6th best in the NFL. Minnesota's offense, they've been damn good on third down, 45.7%. That's 3rd overall in the NFL. The defense, 31%. That's 10th best. So both these teams, very, very good when it comes to the third down conversions. And then real quick, Gil, just quick Viking injury news. A couple guys who have not practiced at all this week, center Garrett Bradbury, linebacker Ivan Pace Jr., a couple guys who didn't practice on Thursday, offensive tackle Christian Darrisaw, who just got a big payday just recently. Defensive end Jonathan Bullard, who's been part of that sack attack for Minnesota. Limited participant in practice this week. Jordan Addison, who you just mentioned, dealing with an ankle. Tight end Josh Oliver dealing with a wrist. Sam Darnold had a bit of a knee bruise that was suffered in that win against Houston on Sunday. He's been a full participant all this week. So a lot of stuff right there, Gil. It seems like it's going to come down to third down again, and who could be the cleanest when it comes to penalties.
Yeah. Those are the little things that make big differences. And, this game is going to have playoff tiebreaker implications, division implications, conference implications. You really, really want to win this game.
You do. But if you don't win this game, it's still September, and we got 13 more of these afterwards. So, Gil, if the Packers win, why will the Packers win?
They got to win the turnover battle, and they have to contain Justin Jefferson. To me, those are the 2 biggest factors. If they can force Sam Darnold, get a little pressure on him, force him to turn the ball over. He's had a lot of turnover-worthy throws that other teams have not been able to hold on to. Xavier McKinney and company, they got to hold on to him.
I think a big thing with this game is going to be the field position battle. And if Green Bay, Daniel Whelan at punter has been outstanding this year. And Matt LaFleur's gone out of his way to talk about him. Brian Gutekunst, he was quoted saying he doesn't have a lot of patience when it comes to specialists. Well, Daniel Whelan's earned himself quite a career in Green Bay because he's having a great season. Field position is going to be huge because I think this is going to be a grinder. 2 defenses playing really good football right now. And if the Packers win the third down battle and their special teams has another clean game and the penalties get cut down on offense, I think that's why the Packers win. Why do the Packers lose, Gil?
If they can't figure out Brian Flores' defense, whether it's rust on the part of Jordan Love, inexperience on Malik Willis, they could be in trouble in this game. It's always a challenge, and losing that chess match or the execution against that defense could spell disaster.
Pretty much everything I said, why the Packers win. If they don't do that, that's why they lose.
Exactly.
If the penalty count stays high, if they can't get off the field on third down, especially against Minnesota's offense, which is top 3 in the NFL in third down conversion so far this year, Kevin O'Connell's a darn good coach. He's a really, really good coach in Minnesota. He's outstanding. He's making lemonade out of lemons, given the situation that he has in Minnesota. And if the Packers, if that defense of Minnesota's is too chaotic for the Packer offense, I think that's why they lose. But Gil, give me your prediction though for Sunday at Lambeau Field, Packers Vikings, first division game of the year for both these teams. Who wins?
I think the Packers find a way. I think it's going to be close. I think it's going to be an exciting game. I think the game will be in doubt in the final minute, but I think it's Packers 31, Vikings 27.
Now, I think this is a game where it's at Lambeau Field. I think that's going to be a huge advantage, even though there's probably going to be a lot of Viking fans there. This is a game where even if Malik Willis starts, I still think the Packers win this game. I think the Packers win 20-16, and it's a matter of, well, Malik Willis, maybe he just does enough to get some points on the board. The defense plays really great. Sam Darnold kind of regresses to the mean to what we were used to seeing for so long and what got him out of New York after being a top 3 draft pick. And if Jordan Love plays, there could be a lot of rust there. And that's where I'm thinking where if Jordan Love plays, I don't expect the Packers to score 35, 40 points on this Minnesota defense. I still think it's going to be a grinder of a game, but I think the Packers get a big win and they win their 3rd straight game 20-16. Gil, leading up to the division round, this division battle, what articles do you have coming up on Cheesehead TV, Packers Post?
For the Packers Post, I took a look at the Aaron Jones situation and what his homecoming means. And I also did some articles on some Packers who have been unsung but helping the team win, and some players who kind of need to pick it up and get into gear. For Cheesehead, I talked a little bit about the sad situation regarding Brett Favre and his diagnosis with Parkinson's disease, and certainly wish him all the best in what is going to definitely be a difficult situation where all that punishment he took all those years on the field may have been one of the reasons why he's got this diagnosis.
He's been in the news recently for the wrong reasons, and we're not going to get too much into it, but it's obviously a situation which made his image look not so good. But him revealing that he has Parkinson's disease, you don't wish that on your worst enemy. You really don't. And it's a real bummer. I really hope he can. He fought so many battles on the football field wherever he was and fought through so much pain. I feel like this is going to be nothing to him. He's going to be able to fight this. And I know it's tough, but the guy's a fighter. He's always been a fighter his entire life. Why stop now? And my best wishes to Brett Favre.
Absolutely.
And Gil, let's lighten the mood a little bit. How about some trivia? How's that sound?
Let's do it.
All right. Sounds good. Well, we discussed it earlier this weekend. Former Packer running back Aaron Jones, future Packer Hall of Fame running back Aaron Jones, will return to Lambeau Field as a member of the Minnesota Vikings. As mentioned earlier, Jones averaged 5 yards per carry in his time with the Packers. It's good for first all-time in Packers history amongst running backs with at least 100 career carries. But for all ball carries in Packers history with at least 100 career carries, Jones's 5 yards per carry average is the fourth highest yards per carry average amongst all ball carriers with at least 100 rushing attempts in a Packer uniform. Gil, who is the Packers' all-time leader in yards per rushing attempt amongst players with at least 100 rushing attempts in their Packers career?
Wow. Okay.
So Jones is the all-time leader for running backs. So obviously that narrows the field a little bit if you don't include the running backs.
Okay. I am going to go. This is a kind of a crazy guess. I am going to go with Tobin Rote.
So Tobin Rote is actually number 2.
Ooh.
Art Starr is number 1.
Wow.
5.29 yards per carry on 247 rushing attempts. The Hall of Fame Super Bowl champion quarterback registered 1,308 rushing yards in his Packers career. And Gil, you mentioned it. Tobin Rote, he is second overall. He averaged 5.26 yards per carry on 419. You were within 0.03 yards per carry. That's how close you were to getting that right.
I feel better.
Do you know who number 3 was?
No.
It was Don Majkowski, who averaged 5, and he was 5.21 yards per carry on 199 attempts. So yeah, you were right in the ballpark. Tobin Rote and Bart Starr literally neck and neck. Just a 0.03%, 0.03 was the difference between those two. I didn't realize Tobin Rote ran for more than 2,200 yards in his Packers career as a quarterback in the 50s.
Yeah, a whole different kind of offense that they were running at that point, and he was mobile. He could move. I did not see him play, but I do know.
You're not that old. You're not that old.
That old, right?
I know that. I just, but you know, I have to read about Tobin Rote, and you do too. We never saw him actually play.
I can go back to Scott Hunter, but you know, that's as far back as I can go in my memory. So
there you go. Well, big week this week, obviously. 3-0 Vikings against the 2-1 Packers. Kickoff is noon Central Time from 1265 Lombardi. Hopefully the Packers can give the Vikings their first loss of the season, take control of the NFC North division this early in the year. Even then, it's great. Even if not, you got 13 more of these coming up the rest of the season. Kickoff, again, is scheduled for noon Central, 1 p.m. Eastern over in Gil's land, 11 a.m. Mountain Time, 10 a.m. Pacific, 7 a.m. Hawaiian Time. Gil, no matter who plays quarterback this Sunday, so the Packers can give the Vikings their first loss of the season and keep this win streak going. I like winning. Winning's fun.
Winning, yeah. It's so much better than losing, to quote Bull Durham. But
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, 100%. Tim Robbins is just playing in my mind right now.
That's
it's Nuke LaLoosh, right?
Nuke LaLoosh.
Wait, it's so much better than Lucy, man.
Right.
Just keep winning.
All right. Well, that is going to do it for us today. We'll be right back here next week. Follow us on Twitter at or to ask us questions, or you can email us at gbpackerssean@gmail.com. Make sure you're subscribed to Packers Talk on iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, YouTube, wherever you get your podcasts. And a big thanks to PackersTalk.com for powering our show. Thank you for listening. Until next time, go Pack Go.
Go Pack Go.